Well, hello there, my name is Vladimir, welcome to my studio. Today we are learning about, I guess, gain pedals, because we're taking a look at a boost, overdrive, distortion and a fuzz pedal, and kind of learn what's the difference between four of them and how I would personally use them. And before we move on, a disclaimer, because I know otherwise I'll be getting a lot of comments saying, this is not how I would use it and all of that stuff. This video is in no way like a definitive instruction of how you're supposed to use this and all other ways of using these pedals are banned. No, actually personally I'm all about kind of breaking the traditional rules of how you should use a certain pedal or an amp or anything like that. But in order for you to being able to break the rules, you actually need to know the rules first. So what we're actually doing here is more like looking at the kind of very common ways of using these pedals. The pedals I have at my disposal today are the Knox Boost Core, a clean boost with some clever options and EQ things. Then a Callan Pure Sky Overdrive, which has been staple of my studio for a couple of years now. I love it. A Rev G3, probably the best high gain distortion pedal out there, or that's my personal opinion at least. And an MXR super badass Variac Fuzz. And a quick thank you to Tampere Musiikki for providing the fuzz pedal. If you shop there, please mention Catwick Studios for free gifts, special deals and so on. Okay, on to the video itself. So let's start with the first pedal in the single chain. I'm using the Knox Boost Core Deluxe, and the typical way I use the boost is basically giving a slightly kind of dull sounding amp a little bit of more life, hair, punchiness, something like that. And in this case the pedal not only allows me to adjust the level, but it also allows me to kind of add a little bit of gain. There's tube and EQ as well, and it just makes a huge difference. Let me demonstrate. We're going from the guitar into the pedals and from the pedals into the front end of my Rev Dynamis over there. It's on the dirty channel, there's a slight amount of gain, the reverb is coming from the amp as well, and we're going into the 2-Not Torpedo live from there. So without the pedal it sounds like this. So not only the gain increases, but there's also like just more dynamics available, just more kind of lively sound compared to this. And obviously having an EQ also allows me to fine-tune the sound a little bit. I might want to remove a little bit of bass, maybe add just a bit of treble. So many times I use a boost just as an always on pedal and then stack other drives and such after it, just because it's a great tone shaping tool. And especially if your amp's EQ is slightly limited or you're playing into a really clean amp that doesn't have a gain control, this is a great way to kind of shape it exactly as you want. Obviously, you can also use the boost to push the front end of the amp into high gain overdrive, and then it would sound like this. That sounds really good as well. And depending on your amp, the results will vary a lot because different amps, different front ends, wow, that's a complicated thing to say, behave differently when you're pushing them. If I would push the front end of my Uralton Junior that's over there in the corner, it wouldn't react as well because the preamp on that amp just doesn't distort musically to my ears at least. Many people also use the boost pedals in an effects loop of the amp because there it allows you to push the volume much louder if you need to, for example as a lead boost. Let's move on to the overdrive, and as the name suggests, it kind of simulates an overdriven amp sound. Especially the first overdrive pedals were basically going for the sound that comes when you crank an old amp that doesn't have any preamp gain in it, and basically what you're getting is power amp distortion, and that's what the original overdrive pedals went for. That's where the name comes from. Obviously nowadays there's gazillion different overdrive pedals and they are not all going for that exact same thing, but one common thing many overdrives share is the fact that they will either give you a mid boost or cut a little bit of the low end, or perhaps do both, and the Caline Pure Sky is no exception to that. Let's again try it out with just controls at 12. As you can hear, it's immediately very different from the boost. There's a noticeable mid-hump and the guitar just kind of becomes more narrow, so to speak, frequency-wise. And let me try and see if I can find the settings where kind of gain-wise the boost pedal and the overdrive pedals would be roughly the same. I think I managed to dial in the sounds pretty close gain-wise, and you'll hear that they don't actually sound same even though they are kind of doing the similar thing. As you can hear, the mid-hum / low cut kind of makes the guitar stand out a little bit more. Instead of when you're just boosting the preamp, you're also boosting the low end and it's more kind of boomy. With the overdrive, it just helps you to cut out, and especially when you're playing live, overdrive can be incredibly useful. The two ways I usually use my overdrive pedal is, for example, going from a verse into a chorus and just having a little bit of more kind of kick, even though I might be playing pretty much the same thing. So like this. And then into the chorus. So that's one way to just give it a little bit of more push and kind of leave the chorus a little bit more. Or I would use it like an actually overdrive in the sense that I would want to go from a really clean sound into something quite heavy. Then I would go to the bridge pickup, hit the overdrive. Moving on to the distortion side of things, I do not claim to know the technical differences of the waveform or anything like that between an overdrive and a distortion. But in general, I would characterize overdrives as kind of mid-rangey, and many times they also shelve a little bit of the low end, whereas distortions are many times kind of full range and I would also characterize them as more kind of aggressive. Again, really depends on the pedal, but that's kind of a general description of the differences between the two. And here we have, in my opinion, one of the best distortion pedals out there, the Rev G3. You might have seen it on many channels. I know it's kind of branded as a heavy metal pedal, but it actually does so much more. And because I don't really play metal live, I play it in my tracks a little bit, but I don't play metal live. I actually use this pedal as a lead thing. And let me demonstrate. I'm just quickly going to demonstrate how it sounds with this setup with the controls at 12, and then we'll tweak. I know there's a big volume boost, but basically we're not cutting out the low end. We obviously can do it with the powerful EQ on this pedal, but it's kind of much more full range, because if I go kind of heavy gain on this one, there's more low end, less present mid hum going on, and yeah, you can tweak it, but the kind of basic idea is different. This is more like a gain channel on your amp, whereas this is an overdrive pedal. I don't know other proper way to characterize it basically. So in a rare case where I would actually play something heavier live, I would probably keep this as my rhythm guitar sound. Obviously Telly is not like a heavy metal guitar anyway, but just for the demonstration's sake. Whereas for the lead stuff, I would probably boost the mids even more, cut out some of the bass, and maybe even go to a blue aggression mode. It's a thick singing lead sound that would cut through the mix really well, and it's also something that I wouldn't be able to achieve with an overdrive, because this actually has a middle control and it just helps me to cut through the mix, and also allows me to fine-tune the sound so that it's not too kind of shrill, because the bridge pickup of a Telly is usually very bright. It's not like super bright on this, it has a really good shape tone pickup in it. But still, it can easily be super ear-piercing. Instead, I'm backing down the treble just a little bit, a big hump in the mids, and you're good to go. So that's basically the two ways I would use a distortion pedal like this. Something that I also want to mention, and something that you can do. Let's go back to the kind of rhythm sound we were having. And you can actually combine one of these with this. So this would be a rhythm guitar sound. And when we would want to go into a lead sound, we would do like this. Let's cut out some of the treble and some of the bass and boost the volume, which basically results in a mid boost. So rhythm. It's getting a bit noisy like this, especially with the bad electricity here in my place. But yeah, you get the idea. Again, it's not the same sound as we were getting with the just the G3 lead sound wise, but it's something you can do, especially if you're running all of this into a clean amp without any channel switching or anything like that. I don't even pretend to be an expert in fuzz pedals, but it's something that I kind of want to learn and perhaps incorporate into my sound as well. And this thing, the super badass Variac fuzz, seems to be kind of in my ballpark because it's not like too crazy or out there. It just sounds good. Let's try out it with everything at 12 or roughly at 12. If you are in any way familiar with fuzzes, I would describe the sound of as something that's kind of breaking down, basically. Like, not only your kind of drive section is working on full, but also like your speaker is breaking down. And it's a sound that many people enjoy, me included. Just for whatever reason, don't use it as much. If I would probably use it as a rhythm guitar sound first of all. Let's tweak this a little bit. So that, for example, would be a great sound for, I don't know, bluesy stuff, for example. Also, many people have had very successful results with using fuzz as a lead sound, and let's see how it works. And I landed back into the right key eventually. Well done me. Again, I'm not an expert in fuzz pedals, but I would say in general fuzz is maybe slightly less kind of universal than the other three. And what I mean by that is that if we're talking about pop music, country music, rock music, anything like that, you would probably go for one of these three as your rhythm guitar sound instead of a fuzz, just because by the nature they usually add a lot of low end and kind of it's less defined and just a bit muddier, which is really cool in many situations. But if you want a kind of good cutting rhythm guitar sound, fuzz might not be a thing. Again, there's 7 billion different fuzzes in the world, so probably some of them do that, but in general that's something I would say. Fuzz is kind of a more acquired taste thing that you would use every now and then. Again, really depends on what you're playing, but that's just my view of the fuzzes. So there you have it. This is how I would use the 4 different type of distortion pedals. Something that I'm kind of skipping here is just putting these in a different order, and that would allow you to have different combinations as well. The fuzz will probably behave differently if you boost the signal or get an overdrive into it, or the distortion might sound absolutely awesome if you put a little bit of fuzz into it. But because we have 4 pedals, that already creates 12, 8, how many variations? I don't know the maths for that, but yeah, you get the idea. Plenty of variations. This video would be 7,000 hours long. Yes, that's the exact estimate. Good jokes once again. So yeah, the basic idea of this video is how I would kind of characterize these 4 kind of drive types and how I like to use them. But as I mentioned in the beginning, there are no rules really. You can mix and match them in any way you want. And that's actually something you should do, because you might end up with some awesome results. Maybe there was something in the way I use these that you haven't thought of before, and that give you some ideas. And if that's the case, let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, ask them down below as well. If you want to support what I do, get yourself a Catpic Studios t-shirt, links below to my Teespring store in the description. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, and that should be it. Thanks for watching. I shall see you next time.